I worked for the Miranda Priestley of real estate, and I am by no means exaggerating. What I'm referencing is the movie The Devil Wears Prada, as many of us know, and many of us know who Miranda Priestley is. She's a character that's a fictionally based character based on the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, Anna Wintour. In the movie, as we all know, she is kind of icy to her staff and definitely a perfectionist. And we see the story of Andy coming into that office, having no background in fashion. That's where the differences sort of are different for me and Andy, but not exaggerating at all. Just like in that movie, I also, like Andy, experienced being called the wrong name in the office. I also, like Andy in that movie, experienced a culture of competition amongst the staff on that team, just like Andy and Emily were kind of rivals at first. I also experienced that high level of, that demand for perfection and unrealistic expectations. That was another thing I experienced. And I also experienced somebody who was well respected in the industry, but kind of behind the scenes, not as much. So I'm going to talk about that experience today in this episode, and I just want to give you 10 ways to survive a narcissistic boss. I know what that's like, and if you're in that situation right now and you are in these offices with these narcissistic bosses and these toxic workplaces, I just want to give you 10 things so that you can survive this situation and ultimately go on to thrive. So stay tuned for this episode of Forward Life Daily, powered by Forward Life Network, where we believe in helping people go from stuck to unstoppable with faith-based guidance and actionable steps. Why? Because faith always moves forward. I'm Kristen. Let's go. Okay, so you've just gotten this new job. You're all excited to be there. You start to work at it. You're new to the team. You're in this new place. And then you start realizing that, this is a toxic environment. This person, this boss is kind of narcissistic, whether they're covert narcissistic or outright narcissistic. And you realize this as you're going along. And so you start to realize some things. So I just want to give you some tips so that you can survive this situation. And I know what it's like to be in that place and to just, hear from other friends how great their jobs are going and everything else. But I just want to give you some tips to survive the situation. So tip number 1 is to master emotional detachment. And that's something you really have to learn because unfortunately these toxic bosses, they thrive on chaos. They thrive on not really giving you any direction and just kind of like wanting you to figure it out, which is great. But just like in the movie, she would tell her, call this person, call that person, call this person. And she was new in this environment and there wasn't a lot of training. And so she tried to ask questions and just got that look like, how dare you ask me a question to clarify? So tip number 1 is you really have to emotionally detach and not take that stuff personally, because a normal sane person would expect some kind of direction, would expect some kind of answer to questions. And honestly, you're not going to get that in this situation, at least not from that direct boss. Tip number 2 is you need to document everything. And I hate to be the one to say that, but the truth is, in these scenarios, a lot of times you might get called out for, I told you to do this, why didn't you do this? Or I told you to have this ready, why didn't you? Or maybe there's a piece to the puzzle where you're working with other people, and so it's not always clear, what it was to get to that point. But unfortunately, you're going to have to document things. I don't know how many times in some of these situations, somebody, maybe tried to throw me under the bus and say, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. But I have the email and I have the documentation right there. And unfortunately, with these type of people, they just, it seems like they don't trust anyone. They don't trust people, or there's always this like underlying distrust. There's always this like underlying, you're not good enough. So unfortunately, you need to document everything, every email, every interaction. You need to have it documented, and it needs to be on something that isn't a company computer, but you need to have something documented that is on your own, in your own email, or sent to like a personal email. Number 3 is flatter strategically. While I would never say to do anything fake or manipulative, I do think there's something to be said with, unfortunately, these people thrive on ego. And that is a big part of their world, is how things look to others, and also just having this ego within themselves. So again, I would never say to do it manipulatively, but sometimes there is a place to adding some compliments and adding some niceties, even though the person is not nice, even though they are not nice to you. It still sort of is trying to bridge that gap with them and trying to extend, some of that grace towards them, even though they may not be that way towards you, because unfortunately that is their currency. Number 4, don't confuse chaos with urgency. And this may be something you're going to have to do internally. I remember sitting down with this person, and they gave me 15 to 20 things. And they said I need you to do this. And so honestly, I sort of called them out and I said, well, what's the priority here? And I kid you not, they went down the list and marked every single thing as priority 1. I kid you not. And that's just impossible. I mean, that's not even logical. So just know that there's a difference between chaos and urgency. And a lot of times, even if you ask the question, what is the priority here? You're not going to get a clear answer. So you're going to have to begin to decipher that. What really is the priority? And unfortunately, it takes time to learn that in the business, or learning what it is that really, makes them tick in that way. But I kid you not, there with a lot of these people, there's no sense of priority. Everything is urgent, and that's just impossible for one person to do. Number 5, this one is extremely important, and it is build a reputation beyond them. When you work for some of these top players in these industries, it can feel like everything revolves around them. It can feel like the whole industry revolves around them. And I've worked for multiple different teams like this, but it's so important to build a reputation beyond these people, because I've even had in other places where just building those relationships with others actually opened new doors. And I was able to work with wonderful people that were not toxic. So I just really, really encourage you, continue to build your professional relationship outside of these toxic, narcissistic bosses, because then you will find people that are wonderful to work with. You will find people that are not in this category. And that is so important when you're in this and it just feels like you're never getting out of it. So please network. And even in these offices, build relationships with other people. It's really important, because like-mindedness, you're going to come together with those that are like-minded, like you, that is a non-toxic, good-working, caring, empathetic person. Number 6, focus on skill extraction. And what I mean by that is just like Andy did with Miranda. Obviously, there's a lot of toxicity there. And that's the part that's not fun. But obviously there's still things that these bosses have that you can learn from. So really focus on, even though it's hard sometimes to see it, just like Andy, she didn't want to be like Miranda. She didn't want to end up like Miranda, but she learned along the way. She learned about, how to coordinate things, how to connect with the vendors. She learned about her own personal style. So I will say, in these situations, with every situation, even if it was toxic, there's a lot I still learn from that person. And I would take the good things, I would throw out the bad, because I don't want to be a narcissist. I don't want to treat people that way, but I would take, what are the good characteristics? Is this person a good negotiator? Is this person, have certain things in order in their business? Take those things and make note of those things and try to grow in those areas of the things that actually are good, because that'll help you feel like you're doing something positive with your time, and that you can take those skills and, move forward with them. So I would definitely say, even in the hardest situations I've been in with the hardest people, there's things that I took that were some good skills that I could take, and I could just release all the rest of the toxicity. But definitely do that, because it'll feel like you're getting paid training, and not that you're in such a sludge puddle. Number 7 is learn the art of the smile. And what I mean by that is criticism is going to come, and it's going to come a lot. And when you work for a Miranda Priestley, or you work for somebody like that, it's never good enough. They're going to say it's always needs improving. And I understand that sentiment. But you're going to have to learn the art of a smile. You're going to have to learn to disengage from that. Again, I understand taking the constructive part and maybe making an adjustment. But when these people thrive on criticism and there's never any positive reinforcement, one, that's not how to treat an employee. But 2, you just have to learn to let that go and learn the art of the smile, and that you don't always have to defend yourself, and you don't always have to, have the same opinion. You just learn the art of the smile, and you just know that better things are coming for your life. Number 8 kind of goes along with number 7, but it's really do not expect empathy. These people that are toxic, narcissistic boxes, just like Miranda, she's not going to give empathy to you. There was that scene even where Andy was complaining to Nigel, saying, why doesn't she do this? And why doesn't she do that? And Nigel's just like, what are you, a little girl? You want to be tucked in at night? You want to be, he was like, come on, size 8. Basically saying you're not going to get a warm and fuzzy, empathetic boss. That's not what you're getting in these situations. You are not going to get empathy. You're not going to get empathy when you call out for an illness. You're not going to get empathy when you fix something, but somebody else screwed it up. Like you're not going to get empathy from these people. That is not their mode of operation. And when you're dealing with this Miranda Priestley type, you just have to know that, and you have to understand that, and you can't expect it. So it's like what they say, you can't get blood out of a rock, or you can't get that out of. They don't have it to give. They don't have empathy to give. That's not their mode. That's why that's why their work culture is the way it is. They don't have it to give. So just don't expect it. Number 9, when you're in this situation, you need to keep your exit strategy ready. If you are somebody that knows there is something better for you, you believe you deserve better than the way you're being treated, please keep your exit strategy ready. Please keep your resume updated, keep your networking happening, keep all those things going. Even if you like your job, even if there's parts of it that you like, just like Andy, she started getting close to her coworker. She started, thriving and like dressing better, and she started learning more. Even with all of that, she still didn't want to be like Miranda. She didn't want to end up that way. And so keep your exit strategy ready. Even if it's day 1 and you are like, oh no, what have I done? I took this job. I thought it was going to be different. Or whatever day it is, whether it's day 1, whether it's day 30, whether it's 6 months into the job, whether it's a year into the job, you need to keep your resume ready. You need to be open to other opportunities. So when that person flips, and they're going to flip, you are ready. You are ready for the next opportunity. And it's just really important not to do it in a reactive way. A lot of people get into these toxic situations and, they wait till the shoe drops or something to, network. And, you got to keep the networking going. You've got to keep your resume updated. And it's really important. So please do that. If you're in this situation and you have a toxic boss, please do that. I don't believe anybody should have to suffer in these situations. I believe that there are wonderful people out there and wonderful organizations out there to work for. And I've worked for some really wonderful people that have made my work life amazing. And so they are out there. So just don't give up. But I understand how soul crushing that can be when you go into a place and you're trying to give your best and you do care and you're just met with such awfulness. And number 10, I really stand by this one, but I do believe that you need to leave gracefully and gloriously. And what I mean by that is I have worked for some of the most horrible people, like a Miranda Priestley. I mean, I've worked for other people that were horrible. And you always leave with grace. You always leave with grace. You find something to thank them for, whether, you did learn certain things. You always leave with grace. Not because of them, not because that's what they deserve, but because that's who you are. That's who you are. That's your brand. Your brand is to leave with grace. Your brand is to at least thank them for the opportunity. If that's all you can do, thank them for the opportunity and move along. Because the best, the best revenge is success and just moving forward. It's not, taking the toxicity with you or being bitter. It's actually moving forward and having success. And honestly, that's what Andy did in The Devil Wears Prada. She, Miranda said, everybody wants to be us. And she looked at that person and was like, no, I don't want to be that. I don't want to treat employees that way. I don't want to be that person. And I've said this before to people. I don't want to be a cutthroat person in business. I don't want to treat employees that way. I don't want to treat clients that way. I do not want to be that. So she, took a stand and said, nope, I don't want to be that. But she did move forward and she did move on to her next job, which was what she really wanted to do, which was her journalism, So she learned, she was challenged. She ultimately walked away and she moved on to her dream job. So that is my wish for you. And I hope these 10 tips help you. And if you're in a toxic situation, please comment below or please send us an email at forwardlifenetwork@gmail.com. I would love to help you navigate through that or just hear about your stories or anything we can do to sort of help you, whether it's refreshing your resume or giving you pointers on job interviews or some networking ideas. I'd love to be part of you going from a toxic environment to a wonderful working environment. So I hope those tips helped. Visit us on our website at forwardlifenetwork.com and go to the resources tab if you want to get the download of these 10 tips, and comment below on your stories. I want to hear your stories about what your worst boss was. Were they worse than Miranda Priestley? Were they worse than my Miranda Priestley? I don't know. Comment below and let us know. Thank you so much.